following program is part of the Patriot Broadcasting Project, brought to you by the Scene Projects Podcast Network. Welcome into this exciting episode of You're Not Crazy Here. I'm your host, Bubba Starts, and with me today is professional arborist Robert Brame. Robert, welcome to the show.
Well, howdy do. Good afternoon.
Yes, well, still afternoon in California, which is where you reside. And you guys have had a lot of fires out there the last 10, 15 years, and you've seen firsthand accounts of a lot of them, and that's what we're here to talk about today. Why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit of background? Obviously, you've spent a lot of time in the woods, but as a professional, why don't you give some your credentials, and we'll move along from there.
All right, my credentials, I don't have any. I love it. Never stepped inside of a college. I've had my head in a scientific plant book. They're like dictionaries for half a century. Self-taught all those years. Had horticulture and forestry in high school, but from there I did my own thing. And I examined trees, ferns, shrubs, vines, and all the wildflowers. That's the 5 categories I pick on. And I've been learning them for an awful long time. I'm an old mountain climber, mountain man, if you will. Climbed over 130 mountains, botanizing a hallway, carrying this 5-pound book with me all over. Always learning plants. It's just been a nerdy habit of mine. Became a arborist for 20 years and let that lapse because I didn't want to do their Zoom calls during the COVID years. Led many mountain trips for backpacking areas around the Bay Area, different groups, you know. And I've done trees service for 33 years. So I've really got a lot of background and not just the fauna or the flora, but the fauna also. I'm pretty versed in most of the animals, bugs, everything that grows, everything that's alive in California and some of the other states. Always backpacking and cooking on campfires. So I know what burns. Can't trick me on that one. Everything burns in a tiny campfire.
You're very familiar with the areas after a forest fire, after a typical forest fire. You're very familiar with how the forest looks, how it breathes, how it acts. And that's why we've come together. I've been introduced to some of your work through mutual friends and was blown away by the scientific background. And just there's very few people that are going to have the experience with these plant life as you do, and to know the natural order of these things. And obviously that's bringing us to the unnatural order of many of these fires that we've been seeing, in California, in Maui, and now we have fires starting in North Carolina in the middle of the winter. We're all very interested to know your take on it. And I know that you have a presentation that you've kind of prepared, and you've been delivering these out in California recently to some packed rooms because it's grown beyond a mild interest at this point. People are losing their homes. People are losing their livelihoods, and they want answers. And they're not getting answers in traditional media. They're not getting answers from the experts. And we're looking to you now, Robert, for answers. And I don't know if we're looking in the right place, but it seems like a much better place to start than with the BS that we're getting fed on the mainstream news. So if you want to go ahead and kind of start your presentation, I'd like to open the floor to you.
Why, sure. Incidentally, those 6 media giants, all they do is lie. If their mouth is moving, it's lying. They are not the experts. Not at all. They're just paid to say a certain verse. All right. You can see that okay?
I can see it great on my screen.
Okay, now I'm going to swipe it over to there. So I've just prepared this in the last couple of weeks, this set of photos. I've plenty of photos, probably over 1,000 of anomalies in these forest fire aftermaths. Incidentally, I've been to 46 of these fire aftermaths now since 2017 in Santa Rosa, the Tubbs fire. But I've caught up with some of the ones before that, all the way back to, 9/11. And all over the world, not just here in California. But and I've also taken 126 trips to these 46 different aftermaths. And possibly 3 were natural. 2 of them were just cars that caught on fire, and burned up the grassland next to it. One was a natural forest fire, as far as I can tell, north of Weed, California, by our Mount Shasta, the volcano. All the trees were burned up, and it looked like this. This is more of a standard wood combustion fire that we know of, and what I backpacked through for half a century. When a fire comes through, it burns everything, leaves blackened poles. There's no needles left generally, no twigs, no branches. Sometimes the poles or trunks are burned down to a low stump. And if it's very hot and it's not that windy, they'll burn a hole into the ground where the trunk was. And you don't want to fall in them. Some of them can be very large. And they all burn. I don't care what species of tree. If they say it's fire retardant, when a firestorm comes through, this is the way it looks. No exception.
Well, and to show a little, firsthand experience for me, I grew up in Deadwood, South Dakota, and back in 2002, we had the Grizzly Gulch fire. And it was a fire started by down power lines, and it put the entire town of Deadwood, and it burned everything. It was great. I mean, we had to evacuate. The whole town evacuated, and this is what the aftermath looked like. I'm very familiar with this scene in particular. I mean, obviously, this is years later, probably on this scene, or at least a year, and you have some of the underbrush that is growing back here. A very familiar sight to us that have lived through a natural forest fire.
Yeah, at all elevations from sea level to up at least over 11,000 feet. Smaller trees up there, of course, but I've seen it all. I know what burns. And then I was designing a hike up in Santa Rosa. I usually share this one first. And I was just looking at areas to go, and this came up on my computer screen. Instantly, I said, why are all the trees there? And why are they green? These homes are gone. There's no partial houses, and they're not black. There's no carbon. They're white ash. They're just missing. Unbelievable. This is the Coffee Park area.
So disturbing, man. It's so disturbing to look at.
And you would really think that almost everybody would understand there's something wrong with this scene. And many of these are redwoods, which are fire retardant. When a firestorm comes through, it burns those too, just like an oak tree. If it's hot enough, it burns all the leaves. So there's all kinds of species in here, at least 75 different species, I figure, in the Santa Rosa Valley. And yeah, a few burn, but overall, these should be missing. All of them, no exception.
Should be gone, just like the houses are. There's no way that a house on the corner can burn to white ash nothing, but its shrubs are still on the corner untouched.
Yep. And I've never seen fires that were in the city. That's only in the 7 to 10 years where cities are burning down. Never heard of that. A forest fire might be in the high Sierra that comes across at mid elevations and burns up to a small community, and the firemen get it out and they lose a few cabins maybe, but that's about it. Now, 3 or 4 or 5 or even more fires every year, and well over 1 million acres of land just in California. And I mean, even this year, it's all January just passed us. Just January alone, they burned down over 16,000 homes in the middle of winter, in the 4 fires or 3 fires in the Los Angeles area in January. That's unprecedented. A year later, I saw the Paradise Fire. Same thing. Up here, it's conifers. All of these are flammable. There's some introduced conifers from different countries, blue atlas cedars and deodar cedars and stuff like that. And there's rows of Italian cypress to the left down there. Those perfect rows. But the number one forest tree in California, which is a ponderosa pine, it forgot to burn. It's the tree that burns more often than any other species in California. Number one.
And that is what we have in the Black Hills. So when ours went up, we had a couple of dry summers and a couple of dry winters in a row. It was a tinderbox. And we had a problem with the underbrush, and a lot of this stuff hadn't been cleared out in a long time. So when it went up, it went fast and it went hot.
Yeah. Yeah. When you have all those ladder fuels underneath, it gets nasty. I start with this one quite often. Most of these from the ground are my pictures with a real good camera. Big Basin State Park is all redwood trees on the San Francisco Peninsula. And down on Highway 1 with the ocean behind me, I'm standing there taking a picture of these blue gum eucalyptus. And for most of your viewers, they probably understand Eucalyptus is a very combustible leaf. The oil's in it. You can light on fire very easily. A cigarette lighter in my hand, I can light a green leaf on fire. That's the way the blue gum is. I can't speak for all the different species of eucalyptus. There's over 800 species in the world. But this one's our most common. Here they are. They're only 80 to 100 feet tall. They're young ones. And the trunks get black, but the leaves refuse to burn, even when they're in the fire. They're down there in the flames. The fires went right through them and forgot to burn them. We're dealing with a different flame right there. It shows you. If it was a normal flame, those trees would have been gone. It'd have been a horrible firestorm. The way they burn, yeah, eucalyptus is one of the most flammable leaves you can find. And they didn't burn. They closed that park for us, didn't let anybody in there for 2 years. And when they did let you in there, they shrank the parking lots, only let you on a few trails for safety. And to go there, you had to get on the computer and get an online permit to go out and play. You can't just show up at the booth, pay the ranger cash. They didn't take cash. It has to be a credit card or your ATM card. The numbers on that, through the internet. It's the only way you can go out and play. They're doing that in all the parks now, one by one. They're doing it everywhere. Here's your young ponderosa pines, right in the flames. This is the oak fire in Mariposa City over on the western side of Yosemite National Park. They put an old gentleman in jail there and are framing him for doing this fire. And I happened to analyze that fire for 3 to 5 days. I was out there a lot. Nothing was normal. I mean, nothing. And they're framing this poor old guy and saying, oh, he did it. Here it is, fire everywhere, but the needles refuse to burn. I'm sure many of your friends have tried to burn a Christmas tree. Don't ever do that. Once you get them going, those flames come out of the fireplace and up onto your mantle, and you better get the garden hose and run in the house and put it out. That's what these do. Sap starts burning at 192 or 93 degrees. That's just the sap. So really volatile stuff when it comes to pine trees. We have 22 species of pines in California. This is a bay tree, or I'm sorry, it's a coast live oak tree. Oak trees are very drought tolerant. They hold a ton of water inside. And many of your drought tolerants are like that. They close up their stomata in their leaves. They hold their water and they don't let anything out, which we call as transpiration rates. They hold that water in there to survive. Well, they're filled with water. Here, this tree must have been leaning over the road, and they cut it down, and I'm noticing it burn from the inside out. The fires came up through the roots, and up through the trunk into all the limbs. And there was no opening anywhere. The fire didn't just go right into the trunk. And incidentally, this fire is the Kincaid fire north of Santa Rosa. And the closest fire to this tree was half a mile away on a mountainside. These vineyards were all the way around me on every side. And of course, your media would say the flying embers did it. All media giants always say the flying embers. I have friends that tell me, Rob, it's the flying embers. No. Here's the same species, the blue gum eucalyptus. This was about 130 feet tall, 7 foot in diameter when it fell over. I was standing next to it. I couldn't believe it. This is cattle country. The cattle are late in September, October. They've eaten the dead grass down to an inch or two. The hay truck has to show up to feed the poor creatures. There's nothing to eat. So your combustible materials are almost zero. Yet this gargantuan tree burned from the inside, fell over about 130 feet tall, a good sized one. And why is it hollow? I don't see cavities in eucalyptus trees. I've cut them down for 33 years. Rare for me to find any hole that goes inside the tree. They compartmentalize their wounds very well, not like a maple, madrone, or some other species. Maples hate to be cut. They hollow out right away. This didn't have a cavity. No way. This little T-post to the right a little bit, there's one of those right behind the stump where it was probably touching the stump or trunk. That's what got hot. That T-post that's hammered in the ground. I don't know how hot it got to do this type of damage. But the whole thing fell over, and there's nothing on the ground but an inch or two of dead grass. There's no way it could do this. A little flame like that, you could just walk over. Because we've done it. We've had burns in these farms around here where they burn off thistles and little weeds they don't like. They set the fire, and they just walk around it, and it doesn't do this kind of damage. The third time I came up this road, and I'm standing on the road, the third time I came up, the whole tree was gone. The trunk was completely taken out. Why would they do that? Why would they care? This is in the middle of nowhere. It's not next to a town. They got rid of the evidence. This tree I talk about quite often. In the Western United States, I believe this is the largest water holding capacity tree there is. A Fremont cottonwood, king of the willow family. All the cottonwoods, which is Populus genus, has the black cottonwood, the white cottonwoods, the Lombardy poplars, and the aspen at high altitudes, which we have in the Rocky Mountains also. That's actually a Populus tree. So a ton of water. This one's about 4 feet in diameter. There were two of them. They were in a spring in October. The water's copious. It's still coming out of the hill. It didn't dry up. This was a healthy Fremont cottonwood, yet it burned from the inside out, split in all these different directions, and not one leaf burned. The thinnest part of the tree, the things that burn the first in a fire, is the leaf or the needle. They forgot to burn.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
yeah, exactly. It's crazy that anybody buys it. When I mean, I grew up in the woods.
Yeah,
We lived in the middle of the woods and made a campfire every single night for 3 months while we built our house, and then that's how we heated our house
yeah,
for still to this day. Right.
yeah,
So it's just crazy to me to look at the massive destruction to the trunk, to the inside of the trunk of this tree with
yep,
no visible damage to the outside of it, whatever. I've never seen
yeah.
anything like that in my life. No fire does that.
That's right.
Even if
The
you started a fire on the inside of that tree, say, you know what I mean? You hollowed it out or whatever, or dug
you
into it
could.
and you started, it wouldn't do this.
That's right. This has so much water. Once in a while, we'll have to remove some, a lot smaller. I cut them. Water will geyser out of the stump a half inch to an inch high. It's just geysering. The root pressure is just bringing this water up. It has a high transpiration rate. It sucks the water up from the springs, lakes, rivers, whatever, all the way up to the leaves and gets evaporated out. Or it's called transpiration rate, but it goes right up and out of the system, not like a thick, leathery leaved tree. Um, you can never burn this. Pour gas on it. Stack firewood around it. It's not going to do this. Period. Never. These guys can run at 4 to 6 feet in diameter. There's a giant one in Nevada, Carson City. It's probably 15 feet through.
I live close to the Missouri River now, Robert, and we got some
Oh,
massive cottonwoods. So I know
right.
exactly what you're talking about.
And they got to have their roots in that water. Amazing. There was two of them here. I just highlighted that. I had to talk about heartwood versus sapwood. Sapwood is live tissue with sap, whether it's really watery like a maple or like a pine, very thick, coagulated, sappy, sticky stuff. But let's see, what do we got here? These are the two tallest trees on the planet. Coastal redwoods, king of the redwoods, and Douglas fir, king of the pine family. The Douglas fir is in the pine family. It's the second tallest tree in the world. These are toddlers when it comes to these two species. The Douglas fir, big ones can be 8 feet across, and the redwoods, 15 to probably 18 feet across. Why do they have 50 to 90% heartwood in the middle? That's dead, non-conductive tissue. It's dead, it's cracked, there's no sap. Excuse me. The sapwood or live tissue is around the perimeter, near the edge of the bark. That's what's keeping it alive. When I cut these trees down, they have zero heartwood, where it's darker or even lighter on some of these, or maybe a dot in the middle that's dead. That's normal. This is all 50 to 70, 80% heartwood. How did that happen? And they're not all black on the outside. They've been cooked on the inside, like being in a microwave. And that gets, we'll talk about that later. But these have been, to me, cooked from the inside out. I don't know what rate, if it's fast or slow. And they're already cracking. These were cut down, I'm sure, within a month, stacked up to go to the lumber mill. Unbelievable to see that amount of heartwood on these toddlers. I've cut down 5, 6 foot diameter redwoods, zero heartwood in the middle. So why is it like this? Every tree. This one are oak trees. These have the ton of water in them, not like the sappy pines and redwoods and such. So some of these were starting to combust. Notice the ends. Huge amount of heartwood, but they're turning black. They're burning internally in 4 or 5 of these shots. Unbelievable what's happening. The water conveys the electrical current and combust where it is, which is in the middle of the tree. This is happening everywhere. Anytime I see a log pile, I've got to get in there and take a look at it. When your tires come up, And I want their scientists to prove me wrong on any of the stuff I talk about. I'm waiting for them. This year, rubber tires, perhaps 1 out of 200 or even 300 tires say polyester cord. And I believe they have one tiny metal wire around the edge to keep it on the rim so it doesn't fall off your rim. One little cord, I believe, steel cord. Um, this is the way I find 99% of them. The rubber's gone and all your steel belts are there. It's one or the other. Steel belts come out just like this, or polyester cord. There's nothing in there. They're untouched. They're in the same location as all the other tires that are just turned to steel belts, little slinky-like steel belts. And I'll pick the thing up to see if somebody just rolled it there to play devil's advocate. Nope, there's a ring in the soil. It's been sitting for years. Why is that not burned up? Get your super scientist to tell me that one. It's the metal that's on fire. It's pretty much put the tire in a gigantic microwave and watch what happens. That's the way I find them. There's never a partial, ever. And I've seen, oh my God, 600 to 800 cars at least. And some of these people are hoarders of car parts and they have piles of tires. And then there's just one that's untouched. Really? There's the highest peak in California to the right of center, Mount Whitney. And all those are 14,000 feet down there. All right, I want to get some of those materials out of the way. This is Los Angeles, the Palisades fire. In all the pictures, you'll notice trees. And I don't care what species they really are. I'd like to pick on eucalyptus and pine family, but it really doesn't matter. When you have a horrific firestorm that's moving super fast and does this kind of damage to a house, the trees would be stumps or blackened poles. Amazing. And I'll get to the aluminum here. I might as well talk about it now. Whenever I find an aluminum or alloy rim, the melting points are 1,221 degrees. That's to start with. To get it really flowing and go across the street, perhaps it goes up 2 or 3 or more 100 degrees, especially when it's 20 feet from the vehicle and out in the middle of the street, there's nothing to keep it hot.
Still running.
Why is it still running? It should be cooling off in a second. Nope.
Well, yeah, and Robert, my background, I was a welder, right? And this is and I welded aluminum for 2 years. I know how it behaves. And people were, well, this is how hot a fire burns. And and I was just like, you don't know anything about metallurgy, though. You don't know anything about metallurgy. There's no way. Like, you know how much intense electricity is how I was welding, right? A wire feeding welder and watching this metal move. It was really seeing the aluminum melted that went, what is going on?
Yeah, I've got 3 metal workers that build all kinds of high-tech parts, and they confirm temps with me. They tell me all this stuff. Amazing. And that's the alloys or aluminum. Sometimes the aluminum rim will chunk out in these pieces, and that could be different mixtures. I don't know. I'm not a metal expert, not at all. Same area. I don't know the area well down there. I'm just grabbing all the clearest pictures I can off the internet. But here you go. Grass everywhere, very short. Where'd you get the giant flames to take this house out?
Still grass on the back left behind the chimney there. There's still grass.
And these look like valley oaks or giant coast live oaks. Hard to tell. They didn't contribute to this. It was the metals in the house. Screws, bolts, nails, pipes, every kind of fastener and rebar, everything else. That's what's on fire.
That was somebody's home, Robert. That was someone's home.
Yeah.
It's devastating. I don't know. It's heartbreaking to have to look at all of these images and then to be fed lies about its origin is just,
yeah. And lately on the TV, I see the YouTube cuts from the TV stations, and our experts are telling you what it is, and they bring people on and try to explain it away and mock us. They're mocking me. Are you kidding me? Bring them to me. That's what my newest term. Bring them to me. When they talk about the fires getting under the eaves, no. When you look from the air on any of these fires, you'll notice the roof is on fire first, dead center, up in the middle of the roof. It's not under the eaves. I hope the firemen can start waking up to this. Got several shots of this. Those pines I've never seen one, but I know what they are. It's an what is it called? Aleppo pine? It's from the south coast of California on the right next to the coast. Lipo, that's not right. Tory pine. Giant thing, very open, long needles, and rounded habit like this. They've refused to burn, and we had horrible car fires under them. Really? Same place, different angles. Some of these aren't so clear. I see all those Teslas over there, or a couple of them. We don't even know what these cars were, but look at the aluminum. What did the fire jump from car to car? I say the beam came down the street and zapped them where they were, and my brother thinks there was people in those cars.
No doubt, no doubt. People
It
just
hits you
getting
so fast you can't even pull
vaporized,
over. That's right.
vaporized. This is crazy.
Unbelievable.
It's just so unnatural. Like, how did the fire burn not any of the trees along the sidewalk, but
Yep.
torched all of those cars in succession? And like,
And look at them. A
it
forest fire
sure
wouldn't do
seems
that.
like it started from the front and went back, and the people in the back there saw what was happening and tried to get out of the way. Does it not appear that way to you?
I know these three here, they were almost in their lane, like they didn't even have a chance to pull over. Some in the back, they turned in a little bit, it looks like, but I don't think they all made it out. Very sad. Same with Paradise on Pence Road. Car after car were exploding on fire, and the fire was a half mile behind them. Each car down the road in a traffic jam was just catching a fire. And the people saw it and they got out and ran, and their car got it next. They were very lucky. The same area over there under the pine. Aren't there giant flames? Yes, but it's the wrong flame. As hot as they are, they don't recognize the organic matter. Same with your plastics. If you don't get in there quick enough, because they like to keep you out and steal all the evidence. And you can't have plastic bins rolling around. That's evidence. So they have to get those out on truckloads. That's where I'd like everybody to watch. The trucks have to leave the site. Where do they take them? And I want to see what companies, I want to know all about that. What dump it's going to it? I tell you, plastics everywhere. There's one from the air. Some of these are eucalyptus in the foreground to the right. I can always tell a eucalyptus. Pines everywhere in the background. I mean, look at this. Unless the tree's very close to a
That's
house.
all you can see is trees, Robert. This is a forest fire, but none
Nope.
of the trees
Nope.
burned down.
In the last few years, they've taken the word forest out of forest fires and they're calling them wildfires. And to find a natural looking forest fire aftermath on the computer is very hard. They've scrubbed them off the internet. But yeah, as far as you can see, trees, trees, trees. Unless they're close to a house or they hold a ton of water, liquidy water. Those are the first to burn. Your conifers, which should burn first, are burning dead last and from the inside out. Your willows, cottonwoods, alder, birch, maples, even the oaks, they're burning first from the inside out. They're all hollow. Here's a hilltop. And the palm trees, everybody says, what about the palms? They're not burning the dead hard wood all the way up that should burn. Instead, they're burning the base of the frond or leaf. Where the most water is stored is in the base of the leaf up top. And you'll notice when you see them, live ones, they're all on fire way up there, 40, 60, 70 feet up. Like, how'd the fire get up there? It's the
And
water.
not burn the trunk, right?
And the trunk's dead hard wood. I climb these all the time with my spurs on. Like, it's hard, dry, dead wood, and it didn't lap up against them. Let me show you something. This one's horrific. Saw that on the internet. Wow. Looks like World War III. Just terrible. Trees,
Well,
trees,
even
trees.
if someone was dropping bombs on it, the bombs wouldn't be smart enough to avoid the trees.
You're right.
It's
You're right.
just incredible how you could look at this and not have questions.
They wouldn't show you these pictures on the TV, and nobody would explain it correctly anyway. So anything close to the house, especially with water in it, liquidy, those will burn up, but not in the normal way. Everything that should burn doesn't, and everything that is burning shouldn't. Making up my own little sayings. Look at these. And I don't know what these doors were made out of, but it was a thinner metal. They're gone too. Windows melting out, approximately 2,500 degrees. Forest fire tops out at 1427. Doesn't approach that temperature. And nobody stacked firewood on it. There's no wood or brush or anything. How did that do it? The seats couldn't do it. The hoses, belts, seats, tires. It wouldn't get hot enough to do that damage. Yet, every vehicle I've seen in 7 years, no windows were intact. Every window in every fire and aftermath was melted out. Everyone. This one came out on TV, and one of the media giants said it was the expert. She said, "Oh, these are the trees that saved the house." Uh-huh. The trees saved the house. I wanted to slap her, but I couldn't reach inside the TV. This is the tallest cedar tree on the planet. True cedars are in the pine family, and there's only four. This is the big one from the Himalayas, deodar cedar. These are all quite large deodars. Pine family, they're flammable. They didn't burn that day. And I got a feeling to the left, all the homes are gone. Look at this car. Same old thing. But that's what they said. The trees saved the house. Here's a rim that chunked out and then melted. I'll see a lot of that too. And the fire hydrant. That's right. That's one of the professionals' picture. Either the water's on fire or the metal itself. I almost think it's the water dripping out of it. And I come to a conclusion just a couple days ago. Why would the water be on fire? A percentage of it is hydrogen. Water, when you take it apart, I don't know what the properties are, but part of that is hydrogen. The guy who wanted to build the electric car and run on water, pour the water in, it would separate the molecules and it'd run on the hydrogen. I think that's what's on fire. I don't know. It's not my area, but why is that fire hydrant on fire? Yeah, how about that one? There's the whole area just gone. Nice flat area to build Olympics. I hear the Olympics are coming. Trees up and down every street. And in the perimeter, it's grassland, looks like. Subshrubs, maybe. Yeah. And this is another angle, that same old big oak. A little bit of a different angle. Look at all the trees. A light shade of green. The leaves have been put in a gargantuan microwave and
It's
sucked
not
in the
even
water.
cooked off. Like when it gets so hot, it saps all the water out of these trees, right? And like there's
Yep.
going to be evidence of a fire, and these trees look fine.
That's right. They're light shaded green. I'll find that quite often. And here in my city, we had some kids were playing with matches and it burned up grass that was 4 feet deep, like October 4 or 5 years ago. And my clients were up there. I ran up there in the fire department, put it out like it was nothing. They were yawning. They came out with their hoses, but all the oak trees were 20 feet high. And these are evergreen oaks, coast live oak, the #1 species in our state. They were brown, 20 feet up from a natural flame. Brown, just from a grass fire. Not here. This is horrific. They didn't even turn brown? Yeah. And this one in the back, I kept this for the stone pine. Italian from Italy, the Italian stone pine is a big, broad pine that's wider in canopy than it is in height in general. It didn't want to burn up. It's got some black on the trunk. The house is toasted. Only the rock, cement walls or whatever they are, stone walls are intact. I mean, I'm still looking for the burn vegetation. The foreground on the right is probably a maple or something that holds a lot of
The
water.
house is completely gone, but there's a shrub right there on the left that looks fine.
Yeah, yeah,
Everything around it is burned to a crisp, but the shrub is like it just doesn't
yeah,
make any sense. It doesn't make any sense for anyone who's ever been around a fire. It's like make it make sense. I can't.
You're right. I've had thousands of campfires, and I don't care what the leaf is that I put in there. Green, the thickest, I don't care what it is, the thickest leaf put in there, in 1 minute, that leaf is gone in a tiny campfire. These are horrific firestorms, and they're forgetting to burn the organics. This one's all I see is green. I see green everywhere. What the? Amazing. There's the new technologies upon us. Just amazing.
And that's, I think, a good point here to transition to talking about what is causing these, Robert. I know that you are very educated in the technologies that are capable of doing these things, and I wish in the last 25 minutes or so that we have left here for you to share with our listeners.
Sure.
What is the true cause of this, right? I think we've seen enough to know that this is not natural. Something man-made, a technology is doing this. It's obviously electrical in nature. It seems to be conductive through water, through metal, but not wood.
That's right. Unless it's brand new wood from the lumber yard, it still has sap in it. That's a possibility also, but not often. Well, what I've heard from all the different people that have contacted me, we've got a lot of categories. Electromagnetic technology, maser with an M, laser, the 5G towers, even scalar waves. And the last guy that got a hold of me, I can't remember his name. He builds robots and does all this satellite stuff. He says it's actually called near infrared. So which one or is it a component of each one? I don't know. Not my area. All I know is all of this is in the microwave arena because of the materials, what it's doing to everything in front of me, the organics, everything. So it's somewhere in that area. The near infrared, I looked on the internet, and it's lasers that you can't see, and that would fit right in. You know, because people have pictures of these lasers coming from the sky and everywhere. How many of those are fake? I don't know. How many are real? But those are all the categories I wrote down. I can't really tell you which one's which. The electromagnetic, friend Shane on my computer, Facebook, he says when a car gets toasted from these, within 1 day, they're all rusted. It's a premature rusting thing, something to do with electromagnetic technology. I can't explain it any better. Uh, yeah, a lot of people are talking about different types of technology, and perhaps it's a combination of all. And there's also the smart meters. They want to say it's all smart meters. Well, smart meters doesn't uh, they're not on cars. They're not in trees. They're not in a little metal shed behind the house. Yes, every house has a smart meter, or most of them. And I've heard of plenty not burning when they took the smart meter off. So those possibilities are there. I just can't say for sure. It could be just a targeting mechanism.
Right. Not to say that it doesn't have some play in
Right.
the grand scope of things. It is just not causing this kind of destruction. I mean, this is
Right.
insane.
Yeah.
Insane. And not a tree burned in the photo.
And a rich green here, like, really? Really? It's just, and it's wherever I go. These flames are coming from above.
There's
How
nothing burned around this house. It started from the inside of the house.
I know.
People are lighting their houses on fire as they're walking out and getting evacuated.
Yeah, got under the eaves again, but it didn't burn the grassland. It goes almost all the way around the whole place. The grass didn't burn. That would burn pretty good with an ember if it landed right and we had wind. No, just the house. And that's one of their. That's Channel 5. It looks like, not mine. Nothing down there is mine. LA. I have not traveled down there at all. There's plenty on the internet. Wherever you go, you know. Usually, when I find a vehicle, it's completely been consumed. It's rare I find a uh, half vehicle that's been burned. But if I do, sometimes it's very abrupt, like that day in New York 24 years ago. Half the car burns right to a door, right to the edge of a door, and doesn't overlap to the back door. Some of those I've seen, and I should have the pictures. How does a fire stop exactly and not overlap, make black on the back door? A perfect line. And actually, I'm gonna have to dig through that in the next couple of weeks and see if I can find one. If you don't like the word smart, don't buy smart water. Don't buy this little car, smart car. I don't like the word smart at all nowadays. Smart meters, smart refrigerators.
Yeah,
Another one thing.
Robert, I've been dumb my whole life. I think I'm going to stay dumb for the rest of it.
I tell you, it's just
Well, and we're pretty isolated. So I've grown up most of my life in South Dakota, right?
wow.
Very rural, very in the middle of the woods, and that's why it's so shocking to me because I've lived through forest fires, and then you're just so many questions when there's more questions than there are answers, and the answers that you receive are total bullshit.
Yeah,
Then you have to go looking for your own. And I commend you for compiling all of these photos and
yeah,
all of this information for us. It's just incredible.
yeah. And you've lived it, so it's blatant when you've lived it. That's all I've ever done. In my roaring 20s, I would climb mountains and had bonfires, and I've burned everything. That's what I've done. I wanted to speak about this, which is going on probably everywhere. In California, I've noted 7 or 9 people put in jail as supposed arsonists when it's impossible that they could have done it. This was um, a poor person that lived out there, a homeless person on the bridge here, and they pinned it on him, and he's actually in prison. They went through a jury, the whole courts, 12 people on the jury, convicted him. That's when I happened to analyze 2 or 3 times by myself before they even say they caught him. anomalies everywhere. And it breaks my heart that they're putting innocent people in jail. This is from that aftermath. The bridge was right below. These are California bay trees in the middle. California bay is in the laurel family. Laurel families, avocados, camphor trees. But this one happens to be very flammable. Oils like eucalyptus. You can light these on fire again with a small fire or even a cigarette lighter. Once you get it going, you better run. A bay tree will burn all the way up, the whole thing gone. It's right behind these houses. There was bays everywhere here. Down the hill was a trampoline, no holes in it, a synthetic. And here's that house with the sheet metal where it rusts pretty quick. No dew in the air. Within a day, it rusts. Some electromagnetic technology that Shane tells me about. There was a parking block up there for one of the mansions that burned down. Homemade, on the ground, 30, 40 feet long, just like this, 2x6 or 2x8, and a stud hammered in the ground. The only place that whole thing burned is where the bolts are. These are all different. I had more, but I just wanted to put two in. That's the only place it burned. The bolts were on fire. Your stainless steel bolts are not burning. And I heard that's something to do with their coating. Because I'll see them on swing sets and the plastic seats, slides, all that won't burn. And I'm noticing they're stainless steel bolts. And somebody told me why. It's something to do with electromagnetic covering. Utah.
Beautiful.
This lady, I've talked to her lawyer. He's a federal lawyer out of Modesto or Manteca, one of the M streets, or Merced, and he's up there and he's the defender, public defender. And I talked to him and I told him about what I do and everything, and he wasn't even interested. They're running her through the coals. This was the Fawn fire at Redding, California, just out of town. I happened to go up there before they put her in jail, and I found the most damning evidence. Eucalyptus happened to grow up there. They didn't burn. Nope. And yeah, more eucalyptus. The trunks turned back and black, and that's the fluids inside. The cambial fluids are right underneath the bark. The most active fluids. That's what's on fire, the trunks, because of the liquid, but not the leaves. A 2-story house just disappeared. No trees burned. Gray pine on the left, that's our lowland pine. Deodar cedar next to it. The long needles is your ponderosas.
That's a massive house. If that whole thing is on fire, I mean, you're talking about the heat. Like, things are spontaneously combusting around it at that heat. Like, the flame doesn't have to touch it to light it on fire when you're talking about 1,600 degrees in the center of that fire. For none of those trees to be more than just a little crispy is crazy.
I mean, no forest fire here. And those are the conifers. Those are the number one thing that burns in a forest is the pine family. That's going to be on the cover of my book. And this lady's in jail. The whole fence line looked like this. Why were the nails on fire? And they have all their experts with CAL FIRE and the sheriffs. And oh my God, the whole fence line. See, that's a different one. Why are the nails on fire? Of course, they can't explain it away. They don't have a chance. This old Edward Wakerman, the Oak Fire, Mariposa by Yosemite. All the police called him down this road to go to town and meet him for something. They stopped him. They had, I don't know how many cop cars, sheriff cars, all with their guns out. And this crippled old guy can hardly walk. He's diabetic, 73 years old. He's got issues. And they put 16 felonies against him. And they have zero evidence. I have all the evidence. They have zero. Unbelievable. And I went to the courthouse. That courthouse I went to, this is the same aftermath. And he was there the first time up. And I told his lawyer I was going to be there, watch my videos, and learn what's really going on. He saw me in that courtroom. And I tell this story all the time. He looked at me. He walked over to the prosecutor. And they're both whispering, talking to me. Then they have the judge come down. It's a very old courtroom, the oldest one in California. All wooden thing from the 1800s. The three of them are looking at me and whispering. Then the judge goes back to his podium, cancels the court case because I was in that room. And no reason, no postponement, we're just going to cancel it. What? Yeah, and that right there is when I found out these are kangaroo courts. I heard the term forever. Now I know what they are. They're kangaroo courts. This guy's done nothing. This is the same aftermath. No trees burned. The needles fell off after the fact. They're everywhere. Look at your tire. Slinky-like things. Some of my best stuff came from up there. This is what your mobile homes look like. Even the steel, what are those called? The steel supports underneath. Why are they all bented up? So the metal got pretty hot also to sway those main beams.
Those are big beams.
Yeah, yeah,
Those-
yeah. It's an amazing thing when you see all this. The nails, bolts, screws, fasteners, hinges, that's what's on fire. And anything in close proximity burns. The wood won't burn by itself. Uh-uh. This was a B&B. I kept calling up there and I found out from somebody up there, oh, the place burned to the ground. Their sign was still there. They didn't take that away. And there's the bolt. I didn't know fire likes to be attracted to bolts. This piece of wood I have at home, the top piece to a homemade fence, a 2x4, 8 feet long, it burned at every nail. What the? There's your damning evidence right there.
right. Yeah.
Why are
Well,
the nails?
exactly. A fire has no conscience, right? And that's what we know about being around them and doing this. Electricity burns that way. Being a welder, I see that kind of stuff all the time. I've shocked myself in the ass because I'm welding and I had a hole in my pants and the electricity jumped right through to my bare skin, right?
Oh my God.
I've experienced this feeling of those things. So we're definitely dealing with something, the electromagnetic for sure. And
Yeah.
for those of you following along, these are the direct energy weapons that we're talking about. These are the things that are out there now. Like Robert said, the specific technology used in each situation could be completely different. Who knows what they're experimenting with out here?
Oh, and every year there's another scientist born to work for these evil people. This is the next guy, the park fire up out of Chico this last year. Burned a lot of acreage, many homes, and they got this guy who has a bad track record already. They said, oh, they had a crisis actor on TV. She was crying and said, he lit his car on fire and pushed it down the hill. That's the car. Why are the windows melted out? Yeah. Nope. She was a crisis actor. That's supposedly the car. And here you go. Lower coniferous zone or upper foothills starting to get into the pines. Digger pines, ponderosa pines. This is a hot area. These are average 100-degree days in the summertime in these areas. Great. Fire that forgot to burn up these trees? Oh my gosh. And
Well, and
here's
I'm
this
just
car.
looking at the vehicles. Where's the fire to start the vehicle on fire in the first place, unless it was already burning? And then why was there no explosion? If there's all this fire and you have gasoline in these vehicles, like why none of them have exploded? None of them have like there's so much, there's so
Yeah.
many questions, Robert.
You're right. There's no dead grass around this at all. Nothing. And part of me thinks they still might have their gasoline. I don't know. Next time I go to one, I'm going to shake the car and listen and see if I hear the gas going back and forth. We've all done that. Like if there's gas in it, like, huh? And it didn't blow up. People want to say, oh, the gas did this. No.
Well, and it's
I,
not like we have metal gas tanks anymore. Most gas tanks are plastic.
wow, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would think so. I mean, I know the one on my Suburbans from '01 and it's plastic.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So same thing, same area, same park fire, they called it. The Jeep. Oh my gosh. This is a ponderosa pine forest with looks like black oaks are starting. So we're moving up in altitude, probably 3,000 feet. Yeah, it burned the pine needles off the ground, but what happened to the Jeep?
To
Pine needles?
melt aluminum and to run it off like that, right? That's crazy. That's
Yeah, with
crazy
pine needles
money.
flat to the ground? Uh-uh. And I think that was a trailer over there. And the propane tanks are not blown up. People are saying that. I've not seen one ripped open. They put X's on them and they set them aside. I don't think any of the fuel came out of them. So that's why I wonder about the vehicles and their gas tanks, especially if it's a plastic gas tank. Yeah, look at this. On the left is a sycamore. We have one native sycamore in California. California sycamore holds a ton of water. I'd love to be there to analyze that tree. That's the only one I want to look at. See if there's a cavity at the bottom, which I'll bet there is. And it probably is not supposed to grow there unless there's a creek to the left. It's an extreme water lover. Oh, secrets. I have secrets.
I'm just blown away by I love that you sneak a few good pictures in there for me to be like, oh, I can breathe.
You have to.
Like the world is not all, burning
That's
up
right.
around us, even though it is.
That's right. We took a trip a month ago to the deserts, went around the south side of the Sierra and went over to Death Valley areas. And I found out there was 3 fires. So on the way, coming back and out there, I analyzed them. Another gray pine or digger pine our foothill pine. 232 homes turned to white ash. I saw most of them, and they weren't keeping anybody out. Anomalies everywhere. My gosh, and the public doesn't know it. And they said, oh, it was a drunk driver with the car, flew off the road, caught on fire. Well, maybe he did, but he didn't burn these homes down, and this pine didn't want to burn. Anomalies everywhere. The windshields again. My picture. Really? And it's sitting by itself out by the road. There's nothing around it.
Well, and also it's not like okay, so it got so hot that you had some kind of like in the glass explodes, right? It gets so hot that there's no remnants of glass. Like, it's just gone.
It's just, yeah, it doesn't shatter, break, or fall out. It melts, molds down to the metals, sometimes worse. Unbelievable. And of course, I found the bolts. Can't hide this stuff. And there was a squirrel there. I was surprised he was alive, a ground squirrel. So he must have gone down deep. And this is another Fremont cottonwood. I can tell by the bark, even though the cables were there, and I'm sure that had some play to it, but it burned from the inside out where the liquids would be. And there was a creek right next to me. Oh, I tell you. Next to Lone Pine, where Mount Whitney is. There's my truck over there. Okay. Mount Whitney, there was a little fire they called the Quality Fire because the Quality Inn was half a mile up the road. I stopped, got out, 55 acres burned, no homes. These were willows, all burned from the inside out and up the branches because they hold so much water. But the thing that got me is that fence line over there by my truck. It's attached, they're all burning. It's attached on one whole side with metal, but the thing was burning at 3 feet high. Every post. You'll notice every post is different. There's the metal things. The attachment points is where all the burning is. There's all your 14,000 footers right above you. Mount Whitney, dead center. Looks small. 3 feet up. Again and again. I don't have an answer for that. Why 3 feet? On the back side, they're attached all the way up and down, which was burned here and there, but at 3 feet, I don't get it. Nails in each one of them. Some damning evidence, so I know that wasn't natural either. It's not hard to figure out. He's overweight. There's a third fire next to Lone Pine itself. A lady had her house in these little cabins you could rent out, and she grows and sells lavender plants. It likes the granitic soil and the good moisture, and she lost everything except one house, and I contacted her, and she didn't trust me, didn't know who I was, and I tried to tell her what it was, and I said, you know what, I'm just going to try to get you money to rebuild your place. That's the least I can do, because I don't like this injustice. She was heartbroken. The guardrails, I didn't get it much into those, but they burn where the bolts are, the guardrails.
It's just so consistent. Everything that you've showed us has been consistent. It burns along the water. It burns along your conductors. It's
That's
not
right.
burning like a natural fire. This
That's
is
right.
an electrical current of some sort
That's right.
that is burning these things up. I don't need to see any more evidence to be convinced, and I
Yeah.
hope that anyone watching this finally can feel the same.
Yeah.
The evidence is overwhelming.
Oh,
It's
I've got
overwhelming.
piles
It's
of it.
unnatural.
I put this on here if anybody wants to help support her, take a picture of it or whatever. But you're right. The creeks, sometimes the electrical current will go down the creek system and the mud up on the sides and go down the creek for a half mile, not come up the bank and keep burning the hillsides. Stays in the riparian corridor, follows the creek. And I went to one with after I met John Lord, the fire captain up north. I stayed with him. I wanted to backpack up this creek. And I brought my fishing pole. There's usually big fish in deep pools. There was no fish, no frogs, no turtles, no aquatic insects, no tadpoles, nothing.
Everything in the water was dead.
Dead. And this was already 3 years past because the plant life was 3 feet high already. The new brush that grew up. And I thought, 3 years, I'm going to start carrying my butterfly net and start searching for any type of insect. Because there's a lot of, I know my aquatic insects too. But there was nothing alive. It was a sterilized creek. I'm glad I didn't drink any of the water. Who knows? But it sterilized the creek, which was really odd to me. Just
And tragic and terrifying and
just the things that go through your head when you see this stuff. A trailer park in our giant delta, Sacramento, San Joaquin rivers come down. There's an island here with 19 mobile homes that burned up. The metal coach is gone. the only wood on the property is the steps and the landing. They didn't burn. Old looking wood. Look at it. And this is the other one. That's the door frame. Open the door and go in your mobile home. Why is the wood looking like that? On that side of the coach, it's not even black.
Exactly. It's not even burned.
Nope.
That doesn't happen.
And all the other materials, there's other materials here. It's like, huh? And people want to tell me, well, the wind was going the other way. I lost all my friends, mostly because they're stupid.
Yeah, well,
It's just that's the most damning photo I think I ever took.
right. I was gonna say you don't need to go past these last two have been the most clear cut. Like,
Yeah.
obviously not even a. Can you even call it a fire?
I
Like,
mean,
are there flames to this as it's happening?
I
Right. Like,
know.
we see embers in different things, and but as these are melting down, and I've seen flames off of, my welder as I'm welding. Right now it's
Right?
a flame, but not in the natural sense of it. So I have a lot of experience working very closely
Oh,
with electromagnetic things like this. It just,
oh. It's just black and white. It's that easy. There's your guardrails. That's the
well,
way they
and
look.
exactly why I had to have you on our program. I've been following you, on Facebook, like I said, through some mutual friends, but I could tell with the pictures you were sharing, with the knowledge that you had, that you had the key to unlock the door in some of these people's brains to finally show them real evidence without any
Right,
other kind of rhetoric. Right, we talked for 35 minutes before we ever brought up anything that you could consider a conspiracy theory. Right,
right.
this is just showing you this is a fire. But it's not in a natural way at all. If it was, it would look different. And we can show you the evidence of fires, natural fires. It's just, it's right here
Black,
for you, people. I hope
black
that
and
our
white.
listeners and the people watching this and will finally open
Yeah,
their eyes to the truth and stop believing lies, just because somebody said so. Don't believe us. Don't believe Bubba Starts, and don't believe Robert Brame. Believe your eyes when you
yeah.
see the evidence, and know in your heart what the truth is. That's
This
all
is
we're asking you here.
this is about the last thing I'd like to share out. John and Matt, the two fire captains of 30 years experience, told me they're pulling the culverts up a lot in the fire zone. Why? They're metal. They're digging them up. These could be 4 to 6 or 10 feet underground. I think they're digging them out because they might be compromised that deep in the ground. These lasers or whatever they are compromising and making them weak, and you don't want the road to collapse. And they're doing this at altitude. This is subalpine. These are lodgepole pines. This is 8,000 feet. There's aspen here. It's getting ready to change. We don't have forest fires at that altitude. Yet they're pulling the pipes out and putting in those black plastic ones, corrugated or a big cement pipe. I found this at 4 or 5 different sites, right where the fires crossed the road. How about that? They did it in Paradise. The fire was barely out. They're changing all the pipes. Why is that? Normal fire has nothing to do with the pipe underground. And more redwoods, same old thing. So I can stop this anytime you want. I've
Yeah,
gone
like,
I've gone plastic swimming pools, they don't melt either.
right.
Where's the flying embers? These are redwoods. Do you see a burned one? They're dead looking. They're all starting to regenerate, but where's those flying embers for this plastic swimming pool?
Right.
The
Yeah. And
house
none
to
of
the
the
right is gone.
explanations that we've been given make any sense at all when
Yeah.
you start to look at the amount of evidence that you have just shown us. It's it's
Yeah.
damning. It's
So you want
very
me
damning. And the culprit seems very, while we may not be able to pinpoint it, it's obviously electromagnetic. Otherwise, it wouldn't be traveling through the conductors the way that it is,
yeah,
and and ignoring the combustibles. It just
that's right.
doesn't make any sense.
And this is everywhere. Greece, Hungary, Portugal, China, the 23 million acres they burned in Canada, 2023. 43 million acres. I can't fathom that. Jasper, a third of the town. Greece, uh, Fort McMurray, Lytton, Canada. The Great Australian Fires, the China ones, all of them. I mean, the very few exception, and this one, of course, I love it. The chainsaw's plastic. It didn't want to burn up like the window and all the tires. Nope, not that one. Anyway,
Yeah,
you want
I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say because it,
Oh, you're a metal shop guy.
yeah,
This is a metal shop. Look at the metal shop. Why is that pinyon pine? Those are the pinyon nuts we eat near what do you call it? South of Reno. But a metal shop. Well, the metals are on fire and the tires in the foreground. A pinyon pine refused to burn? What the heck? Yeah, wherever I go, it's the same. I wish it'd be normal. And this is what they're doing. I got in early. Guerneville, Russian River, they're stealing everything off your property. These are multiple properties. They're taking all the bins, the plastics, the wood. They didn't burn. And I bet you they did that in Lahaina when they put that fence around it. I'm sure 10-wheelers were going in there and they were stealing all the evidence. It's not for your safety. That's like, yeah, they're always pushing fear and safety down your throat. This isn't one property. No way. It's a staging area. And here's your two tallest trees in the world again, and a cedar also. Oh no, redwood. They didn't burn. Nope. And another pile I found in the Mariposa. They got it
all the
together.
garden hoses.
Yeah, garden hose, little plastic pots, and PVC and chairs. They just get everything together, no matter what it is.
I'm sure the fires were afraid of the hoses. That's what it was.
And the black hose going past. That's some type of PVC.
Right. Well, and funny, Robert, my dad's a landscaper, so I grew up putting that black PVC in the ground.
That's amazing.
Oh,
Stop
and what we all have to remember that all of these pictures that you've shown tonight, most of these are people's homes. These are human beings' homes that have been completely obliterated, not by a natural cause, by people. Other humans are perpetuating this, and we need to wake up, right? And to open our eyes and to realize that the lies are exactly what they are. They are lies. We just stop believing. Stop believing should be the first thing that we do, right? If you're out there and you think that believe your own eyes. Believe what you've been shown tonight in this presentation. We're not asking you to believe us. Believe your own eyes and what you're seeing, and ask yourself if you can. Someone's home burned down behind them. Their children will never play there again. Their children will never live in that home. And that's the real tragedy that, LA is going to go through now, is because here comes BlackRock with the payouts because, oh, sorry, your home wasn't insured for a fire.
That's right.
And that's the play. That was the play in Lahaina. That's been the play along all of these places. And when you follow the maps of the smart cities and the new Olympic range, and you can't deny it anymore. I don't think that they can deny it anymore.
No. The city of Greenville by Mount Lassen, our most southern volcano, the whole city was gone. All that's left was a gas station and a food store, and all the plastic garbage cans were taken away, but I found a couple brand new ones. Plastics everywhere, hidden behind walls. They didn't see them. The fire truck, that looks like 9/11. That's what I remember. Like, what does that to a fire truck? And the background, this is the Great Dixie Fire by itself, was almost 1 million acres. Trees are all dead, but I can't say they're burned up. Mid-coniferous zone, this is where you would have your worst firestorms. They didn't burn up. Show me. The whole town, gone. That one too, same area. They just refused to burn. Yeah, whole homes. It's rare to find any black. I have to really look around, unless the fire department got there quick enough. You find a little bit of black, maybe. Yeah. These are the last few. And I'm about done. Do you want me to stop the screen share?
No. Just keep, if you only got a few more, let's get through the rest of them.
Nails.
Too.
These are all different fires. I'm always looking for the post, the nails. A walnut orchard. All the trees were English walnut, ungrafted, burned from the inside out at the bottom. Look at the field. The cows eat the grass again, or they mow it. There's no combustion in here. Why is this burning internally? This is horrific. The trees were gone, and the stump had a hole in the ground. And all there is short grass. Nothing else. I think that might be it. That's it right there. Osprey. Yeah.
Robert, I thank you so much for joining our program and sharing, your knowledge and your experiences. I mean, you've seen these places firsthand. You've been there. You've been documenting this stuff for almost 20 years now or more. I just hope that this changes It's not going to change the world, but awareness will change some minds. And once we kind of hopefully hit a critical mass to that we can start to affect some real change. Because this is human beings doing this to human beings. This isn't God doing this to human beings. This isn't nature taking its course. There are human beings behind these things, and there needs to be accountability. And until we start to effectuate some of the, the group collective consciousness and start to activate that on a wider scale, then there really is no, they're going to burn us all alive. They're going to vaporize us all, just like everything that you've shown us tonight.
We have to wake up the masses before we can do anything about it, because right now they hold all the cards. They're attacking us, every continent, every country, pretty much. I don't know how we're going to combat this, but we got to wake up everybody first and educate them what's going on. Then we can find out the people building the parts, operating the systems, arming it. There's a lot of people involved in this. It's not just a few people. Millions of people are involved. Just like that day 24 years ago in New York. It wasn't just a handful of people, orchestrated for a long time. Just got to educate. I educate people every single day. I have a flyer. I didn't take a picture of it for you with my 10 Anomalies.
You can send it to me, and we'll definitely include it in the show when we go to post it. I'm going to turn this around real quick because we can't hang on to this stuff. Do you want to go ahead and just kind of plug anywhere where people can get a hold of you? They can contact you to give a presentation in their town. I know you've been very busy delivering these things at churches and educating people in real life.
Yes, I am.
To gather them. So go ahead and share whatever you can.
I don't know how to put my email on there, but the best thing is to see any of my 25 videos now is type in anywhere on your computer, Forensic Arborist Robert. Those 3 words will come up on anywhere, just any. And Rumble's one of the best. So is DuckDuckGo and Yandex. Google and YouTube, they kind of watch what I'm doing. But the other ones, wow. Even my smallest videos or town hall meetings, they're on those. Rumble's pretty good. I don't really want to give out my email because I'll get inundated in 2 seconds.
Yeah, we don't want to do that, but definitely checking out the Rumble. Once again, go ahead and tell us your name on there one more time.
Robert Brame, Forensic Arborist. 50 years of analyzing plants, at least in California, and many introduced plants from around the world in our neighborhoods. That's been my fun for half a century now.
And I thank God for your love of the plant life and the fauna and all those years that you spent before any of this out there. Once again, documenting the way that things are naturally occurring, right? Because without that basis, anyone could look at what's happening now and go, well, that's the way that it's always been. No, it hasn't. Here's the truth. And I just appreciate you so much for coming on our program today and sharing with us. And I hope that as things move forward, that we get to talk a lot more often.
Why, sure.
The following program is part of the Patriot Broadcasting Project, brought to you by the Scene Projects Podcast Network.